I mentored Sean Merriman. So when I saw the commercial hit, I was like, dang, you got Sean dogging cats, but then here comes Steve grabbing the ball, and that's you.
And it's goosebumps because you talk about the concept of it and what we're trying to show the grind from week to week, seasons, through the fall, through the winter, right? Regardless,
The
indoor,
weather
outdoor.
was changing on us.
No, yeah, exactly, right. But
Right.
every week you got to grind.
Welcome to another exciting edition of Conversations with a Legend, presented to you by Up On Game Presents. I got my man, the esteemed tailback. I mean, if that's what you want to call him, some people might call him a freight train. Big dog. Got my man Steve Jackson with me on the show. Appreciate you coming in, joining the show, man, having a conversation with you. How's life been, man? How you doing?
Well, thank you first for having me, man. I grew up a huge fan of yours. When I was in high school, I watched you at Penn State. So I
Appreciate it.
appreciate this conversation that we're about to have. But I'm doing good, man. This year is going to be 7 seasons away from the game.
Okay.
And the initial 1 or 2 is a shock to all of us. But now that I'm so far down the road, it's one of those things where, man, I look at the game, I just marvel about what we were able to accomplish ourselves because you realize all the things that's not in your control. But when you're in that huddle, you think you are.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So you're from Vegas cat. Did you tell me about that experience? Like, is it just born in Vegas? Did you move around? Like, what's your background? What's the upbringing? What was that like?
No, so I'm born and raised Las Vegas, one of the few. And my mom and dad are from Arkansas.
Okay.
Dad did some time in the military, and once he got back from the war, Vietnam War, they moved across the country. He said $60 and a car full of stuff, and moved out west. Heard they were hired in Vegas. Got a
Wow.
gig on the Strip. He and my mom both found jobs on the Strip during the New
Okay.
Year's time. You up employment, expecting for the crowds. And then back then, stuck around 35 years later, he worked his way up from an entry level job of being a porter to being a casino manager. And,
Nice.
that's when family owned and people are, able to move up the corporate ladder, so to speak.
Sure. I mean, what was that like, man? Like growing up in Vegas, like people think of the strip, people think of so many different things. Uh, football doesn't come to mind. I mean, you might think of the running Rebels or something like that from UNLV, but football, you don't say, Vegas. I mean, I know Bishop Gorman is there, and I know that they've had some good football, but I mean, what's that like? What's football like there?
No, it was, football here growing up, especially, was very low profile. It wasn't a big scene. And now that, you have some of these national names that you reference, the exposure is getting out there. But growing up when I was here, no, I mean, it's city living, getting in outside all day, but getting in before dark and very little fields to work on your craft, so to speak. So I was a kid, man. I just ran hills, ran some of the mountains around here, put in a lot of work on bleachers back then, that kind of stuff. And I was just dedicated to what I thought or what was an escape for me. And the reality was it wasn't much going on. The city was only really for adults at that time. So you couldn't go on the strip as a kid.
Hmm.
And the other stuff they had going on, I was fortunate enough to come from a 2-parent household. So my dad wouldn't let me get involved in that. So my escapism was the football field.
I could dig that. You you're a big bat. You were a big. And you talk about being a fan of me. I was a fan of you watching you tote the rock for the Beavers, man. And all I could remember was I want to hit him. Like I want to play against this dude because you were explosive, you were fast, and your type of back. I mean, there's really like a handful of guys that you can say were the type of back that you were. That you throw Eddie George up into the mix of that. I mean, there's a few more that you could kind of throw out there, but you were a break the mold type of back. When you were coming out, you said high school ball was relatively low key and obscure. how were you recruited? I mean, because the size and the speed and the athleticism, I mean, you had to be a top rated guy coming out, right?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I was in the recruiting, and that back then, those little books, magazines.
Tom Lemming and all athlons. Yeah,
Right. But
yeah.
never to the esteem point of national notoriety. So, schools like Nebraska recruited me, but they saw me as a defender.
Okay.
more as a linebacker. And the other bigger schools here on the West Coast, you had UCLA with Deshaun Foster at the time, and they just wasn't winning. And so when I was coming out of high school, USC was down. My freshman year at Oregon State was Pete Carroll's first year at SC.
Mm-hmm.
So that dominance of Southern California just wasn't prevalent when I was getting ready to come out and have a scholarship. So the Northwest and me wanting to be in the Pac-10 kind of was locked in, and it was like a destiny. Coach Erickson, which I knew his work from Miami Hurricanes.
Sure.
He came to my house, gave me the pitch of his life and my life, and a lot of things that he said to me made sense. He had two senior running backs and no one to kind of stake claim to who's going to be the next guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I just jumped at the opportunity. I believed, I bet on myself. I believed in my talent that given other underclassmen, I could compete.
You were a terror.
Yeah.
How was that? A lot of times people have to overcome a lot of elements when they leave from high school to college. I too was a tailback. I was a big back, and I was the opposite. I wanted to play defense. I was getting recruited to play tailback, and I didn't want to play tailback. I just feel like the game can be taken out of your hands, and it could be put into somebody else's or into something else, and you could be rendered, kind of a non-factor. And I really didn't like. I like action. I needed action every play. For you going to school, I mean, you chose it. Coach Erickson gave the pitch of his life. You end up there, and you didn't have to wait long. From what I can recall, you were right in the mix of it, and you were making an impact. What was that like for you? Like, was there any major challenges that were unforeseen? Like, people look at what you were able to do, but then they sit there and be like, it probably comes easy for him. He probably never had to struggle because he was bigger, stronger, faster than everybody that he was going up against.
Yeah, no. So I think the challenge was just getting my due. As you stated, freshman year I played as a true freshman. I backed up two seniors, and the opportunity that I recall is playing special teams and making an impact there. And then that's when I started really buying into it. It's a team sport, right? Because to your point, it did come easy until I got to the college level. And when I started realizing the impact of what you can have on a game if you put in the right positions and then have the opportunities, it started to click a little bit. But then when the two senior guys went down against USC in the Coliseum, and I was thrown in the fire, it was more so of showing my commitment and love for the game. I often reference to I'm an old school in mind because I studied you guys so much. I knew everything about you all because I wanted to eventually be you.
Mm-hmm.
So with that respect for the game and my knowledge of the game, it was my opportunity when these two guys went down in the Coliseum. I felt like it was just it was a divine intervention, so to speak, and that was my chance.
I mean, I've never been to Oregon State. I'm tight with TJ. We do a show. I make fun of him a lot, like Oregon State, this and that. But y'all be producing some ballers out of there. What was did the success on field equate to, you know, pressures or an interesting life as it applied to you guys, for you in particular, off the field?
That's an interesting question. I believe, yeah, it's one of those. It's a small town, small college town, very friendly people, but it's still somewhat. It's not. It doesn't have quite the diversity of some of these other larger campuses has, right? So, in so to speak, when you're 1 or 2% of the population of what campus is, you come real close to each other, and you got to lean on each other for experience and to make sure you're not tripping, right? Like, this is what I went through today. Did you experience this, or have you
Mm-hmm.
had that happen to you? And it's kind of like it's when you come back to neutral and you feel like, okay, all right, I'm not tripping. This is the experience of what I am and what I'm going through here in the state of Oregon or on campus. Largely because sometimes I what I experienced, okay, is that people want to help, but in helping, they kind of drown your voice out because they can't quite live in your shoes and through your lens. So although I was this big star athlete on campus, there still was some experiences that I lacked from what I grew up with and was used to. So in that setting, it makes you all ball important. It makes the emphasis of family and leaning on one another even more, bolden because it's really what you're living out. Training for the game is what you're living out in your college experience, hoping to take advantage of the opportunity.
Who was your person? Like that's a great answer, and it's respectable. But you and I know we be dealing with a whole lot. Like there's those moments of, even if you're doing well, there's moments of like uncertainty, frustration, excitement. There's so many different emotions that, especially when you're the star, you know, who was your person? Was it a teammate? Was it my person was on the track team, and it was a lady lion that ran, and we were best friends. We knew each other since high school. Wasn't a love and basketball type of story. It wasn't like that, but that was my person. I had the Ricky moment. Like, I'm tired of this. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
didn't fell to my knees, bro. I'm crying, like crying. Like, I don't understand why things are going this way. And I can remember her talking me off the ledge, like, let's jump back in our books. When all else fails, your education is the key, and just keep believing in yourself. Did you have a person that when you had your moments, that was like that person that you talked about, the community and drawing close? Who was your person?
So it was a senior running back. His name was Ken Simonson, and he's the school all-time leading rusher, right? So I was fortunate enough to not only play for a guy that broke a lot of records and kind of set the standard for myself, but also he was a Pittsburgh, California guy, that Bay Area, and he had some sense. He actually made me start looking at the world in a broader terms, right? I wasn't so just laser focused on just thinking about football singularly, and he would probe these questions, or he would point out the history of what we were living through, and he was bringing that kind of awareness to myself. So I was fortunate enough to have a senior running back pour into me so early because he saw the potential.
Mm-hmm.
I was humble. I was willing to put in the work, but at the same time I was a sponge, and he fed into that in the right way.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna transition on you. The Pac, you said the Pac-10, then it went to the Pac-12. That 10 came and took UCLA and USC. Now y'all are going to go back to the Pac-10. What's you're watching it take place? I'm gonna talk to you about NIL, because obviously we're going to get to the commercial, one of the most legendary commercials ever shot as well. We're going to touch on that and how multifaceted you are. But talk to me about what you feel about the Pac. Can it survive? Where you think things are going?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think it will survive, just the sheerness of the population, and people are proud of their schools, just like anywhere else in the country. Disappointed USC and UCLA, they kind of pull the rug from underneath us. Where in a year or two you're going to have negotiation regarding new contract money, and right now it looks like you're so far behind the SEC and some of these other conferences because of their licensing and their TV rights. But you're not giving the consideration that the Pac was the first ones to do a TV deal, right? So
Mm.
you're ahead of yourself at a time where now the market surpassed us, and it's just about having a correction. But more importantly, where I think they really lost sight of it is regionally, right? You're not securing the best talent in California or in the southern western states because some of our best talent's being poached by the SEC. So, if you think about it in terms of politics, you're not securing your own borders. So how can you then say, okay, we're the ones that's carrying the conference, and you move on to another conference as alliance, where you're not doing anything or doing the best that we could to work together as a conference to secure that we keep our best talent regardless of where they go on the West Coast.
Mm-hmm. So that's, I mean, what do you think happens? That do USC, UCLA going into the 10, are they able to recruit better? What does that mean for Oregon State? What does that mean for Oregon? I mean, what does that mean for the Pac now in terms of that idea of what the recruitment of the players looks like, especially in the areas that you guys are in?
Right. So if I'm Oregon State, if I'm on this committee or this board, and we're talking about how are we going to attract new talent, it's to do exactly what we kind of hit on. You look inwardly and you think about self-reflection. We want to bring some of these top athletes in from these areas that is obviously being abandoned. We need to go in there and have a real conversation with them and their families.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it looks like now, but this is what you can help us build towards the future. As well as we're going to allow you to play, we're going to allow you to play early, as long as your talent does so and your grades reflect that. But also, we're going to make sure that your family is involved on how we're going to help you build a brand for yourself, or how to help you go out into the larger world and deal with these hurdles that come before us. It's not just about building alliances, but it's about working through issues and problems with other people. And we could best give you that example here, because it more than likely it's not going to be your normal life or what you've been used to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, before I get up out of college, I got to ask you, NIL, because we're going to talk about how you have been almost, in essence, you have been active, proactive, almost like a savant, and being more than just a football player. We'll get to that as we move into the next level of your life in this conversation. But NIL, if the NIL is there while Steve Jackson is in college, what does that look like for you?
Oh, I think I set myself apart. What these kids call, content creator, or one of these Renaissance people that's leading the way. I think that's what I would have been in those shoes. Because I understand how to story tell. I understand that everyone doesn't get to live these realities that we had the chance to, and how to package that in a way that it's approachable. I have a gift for that.
Mm-hmm. You always have. So let's delve into that. You end up going as a high draft pick. You go to the Rams. The Rams was still a hot team at the time, still in St. Louis, and hell, I can remember playing against y'all, and you were the guy. Um, what was that experience like for you in terms of you marketing and branding yourself, and how did that play a part in your popularity, because you grew to popularity really quickly coming into the league? And obviously, again, if we were to say St. Louis, the St. Louis Rams, they were like the popular team, people would be like, really? Like, everybody's thinking LA these days. But that was a vibe back then to be on the Rams, and you were on that I want to say the last of the Mohicans before it went bad, kind of sort of, for St. Louis, and they ended up leaving. So what was that like for you, being that, like, you took over the mantle? Like, it wasn't going to be easy to do it with Marshall Faulk being the guy he was, and Arlen was up in the mix at a point in time. But what was that like for you?
A huge challenge. Everything you said was it was an upward hill battle, because you have two-time offensive MVP in Marshall, and some of the other things he able to accomplish
And
while
he was still there.
he was still there, being and here I come. I'm not clean cut. I had these long hair, tattoos, so I looked the polar opposite of what they've grown to love.
Uh-huh.
And for me to come in and challenge that, it wasn't going to be easy, and it wasn't. They had their opinions of me, and what I did know, and what was always driven in me from high school, was we reflected on, is I was a hard worker.
Mm-hmm.
It was the why I got a chance to escape. So regardless of how beat writers wrote about me, or how fans felt about this new kid trying to take their favorite player's job, I knew that if I continue to just consistently work hard and just show up, they eventually get to see the other side of me.
Yep.
And that's eventually what I just did. And it almost made even more sense, because blue collar people are that way. My work ethic reflected of what their life really is.
Yeah.
It made their guard come down, and it made me, I guess, seem more approachable.
Have you ever heard? Because when I first was seeing you, you were big. You did have the dreads. You did have the tats, and I was a dread too, so I know all about it. I see you going back down the journey as well. I don't know how far you gonna go with it,
Yeah,
but
it won't go that far.
it won't go that far. You had your mane, you had the tats, and look, they who win the war write the history, right? That's all you see.
Yeah.
That's all you see now. Like, so in so many ways, you're a pioneer. I mean, if you look at Henry, that's a carbon copy in terms of big, rocked up, fast, tats, dreads, right? Like, you're a pioneer. How does that feel now, knowing that you had to do that uphill battle? It's almost like, in a way, it's almost like a AI type of scenario, right? Because you were the first one. Like, literally, I could say confidently, you could think about like them you boys like Najee Davenport and a few of them, Edger and James, but they weren't larger than life figures coming in. It wasn't like this big, tall, ginormous running back, tats and dreads, and he's out on them. Like, what was that like for you now when you look at where the game is, the culture of the game now? How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel good because it means that I did my part, right? Not only did I, help breaking into the day-to-day Sunday football watchers television set, because you're talking about the commercials and things
Sure.
like that, right? I was able to be on the spearhead of that, but also I guess I handled myself in a way that they didn't have those stereotypes you want to put on that look or what you want to assume about that person that looks like what I look like. You I broke those I helped break some of those doors down to make now that these guys are getting contracts and these commercials and not having that second thought of what I knew I faced in the boardroom. It just it proves that I did my job.
So let's talk about that. Led to endorsements knocking down the doors. I just had this conversation with my homie yesterday, so I'm real tight. I mentored Sean Merriman, so when I saw the commercial hit, I was like, dang, like, hardest commercial to this day. It's still the hardest one to this day. The Last of the Mohicans I referenced earlier, they're playing the theme music from the movie. You got Sean dogging cats, but then here comes Steve grabbing the ball and rolling out and doing what he's doing, and that's you. How does that, in the moment, I'm sure it's like, man, that's a pretty cool commercial. But where you are now, how do you look at a moment like that? Like, how do you internalize that you're part of one of the most iconic Nike commercials ever shot?
And it's goosebumps. I remember in college we used to get some of the prototype cleats, right? And we would get these shoes given to us and practice in, and it was like, damn, if I could just sign a deal with Nike one day, that would be like one of the freshest, dopest moments that man. But then fast forward to be part of the most iconic commercials, the marketing. It changed the way football commercializes itself and how it pushes the products. But to be, that prototype, it'll outlast me, my time on this earth. So it's dope. It's dope, but it's very humbling because I remember just wanting to get some free product as a college entry
Right.
kid. Yeah.
Right. How does that make you feel to know, again, that guys, it's always who can come up with something next? Like, where does the next game-changing content comes from? How does that make you feel to know that that's a standard? Like, guys are still probably influenced by that commercial. How does that, like, that's got to be a cool feeling.
It is, because you talk about the concept of it, and what we're trying to show is the grind from week to week, seasons, through the fall, through the winter, right? Regardless,
The
indoor,
weather
outdoor.
was changing on us.
Not, yeah, exactly, right?
Right.
But every week you got to grind, and when Merriman, you got the pressure of him breathing down your back, or you got the pressure of me getting ready to run, trying to run you over.
Right.
Who's going to stop you? And then next week, the challenge only becomes even greater. So for us to be able to convey that in less than a minute, we still able to talk about it nearly 20 years later. Man, it was. I was happy that we put in the effort that we did because we talked about it, right? As you talk about, like, I want this to be dope. I want people to remember this. So for us to go and put that kind of commitment in and deliver on that, it means that we're gonna stick around for a long time.
Truth.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. Let's stay in that area in terms of branding yourself, in terms of being more. You have always proactively been more. Like, I always say, I'm a guy that played football. I'm not a football player. I've never been a football player. I've always been a dude that played ball, and I actually was good at doing it, and I love doing it, but I never subscribed to I'm the jersey number on my back. I'm this is what I am. I'm a football player. Like I love the game. I love what it's done for me. But I was always proactively trying to leverage the game and what it represented to ultimately become what I wanted to be. I saw that in you. I saw you, doing a lot of, I know you did the boot camp, the media boot camp at one point in time. I know you were doing, media and different things like that. How has that gone for you? And what was your approach in terms of building your brand and being, I heard you mention a Renaissance type of guy. How was that, or why was that a mindset for you? How did you approach it, and where are you with that now today?
Yeah. So it's the ball, I guess, started rolling and things started clicking for me when times started getting bad in St. Louis, right?
Okay.
You're not on Monday Night Football, you're not in the prior time spots, and the things that you're accomplishing is kind of being just read or a small bleep in a paragraph, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, holy crap. Now, if I don't get control of the narrative, now people say now, but if I was like, if I don't get control of this narrative, I'm quickly going to be a memory. And so I then start going back to what you lived in your journey is actually you start pulling from that as inspiration. And the two things that I lived through in Vegas, always promoting itself as being one of the greatest cities to escape to, always promising some type of reward for risk, right? And then when I got to Oregon, I saw how Nike was just such a dominant force in the sports world. I started thinking about, okay, how do I bring these two together for myself? And I did that by shooting a documentary. I did this documentary called The Week in the Life, and it's telling the story, again, more intimate level. And I shot that, and we released that on YouTube. And when I saw how much interest I got, I was up for what was called a Webby between The Onion, LA Times, and myself. So I'm like, whoa, I'm on to something here. Now, how do I stick to it? And as I continue to study it and continue to evolve, as you said, the Hollywood boot camp things, start leaning out and leveraging the game that I felt was taken from us and abuse of body, I started leveraging what it was offering to me to grow myself intellectually and in different rooms that I couldn't get in my own.
So where are you at with it now?
Well, now I have my own clothing brand that I'm rocking.
OBS.
OBS, yes. And the website is obsbrand.com. So thank you for that.
All right.
But what the brand is overcoming the BS of life. Right?
Okay.
So we're all going to have some issues. We're all going to grow up through some things that have traumatized us as kids. There's going to be some hurdle that you believe either gender's holding you back or your ethnic race is holding you back. There's going to be rooms you're going to be uncomfortable in, but you got to navigate that for yourself. No one's going to come save you.
True.
You got to be able to navigate. You got to be able to not only communicate your story, but also your strengths. What can you provide in that room to be a favor? And once you get that and realize how you make those connections in the room, how do you deliver on that? And I continue just I just impress on the younger generation because I love dealing with younger athletes.
Okay.
I love dealing with high school students, but because at that point it's so pivotal, you could go left or right, and I'm just trying to press on them that continue to be uncomfortable because the moment you're in the smartest one in the room or you're the one the biggest success in the room, you're outgrown that room. You got to continue to look for how do I overcome the next circumstance in my life. So motivational. I sold clothes in high school to get by. but it's helping tell the story and motivating that next generation to keep going.
True, true. I love that. So OBS, make sure you go to OBS brand, that is,
Yes, sir.
obsbrand.com.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, make sure y'all go. We'll put that up and push that out. Uh, Looking at the league now, what's your take on it? Because it was still bang bang, back then. It was still a whole lot more physicality connected to it. You were just talking about, some of the things that you got to get addressed, health wise and stuff like that before we even started the interview. Bro, we was thumping back then. Like it was bump and grind back then. The game still has some dogs, but largely it's an evolved, it's a changed approach, it's a changed physicality total overall to how the game is played. How you think you would have done in today's NFL?
I think just the sheerness of they don't hit in practice, right? I think that saves and probably lengthen my career another 2 or 3 seasons.
Hmm.
Where I had some of these coaches, they were coming into the team because we were bad the year before. They think they got to toughen you up. So I'm live practice, right? And then now I have to go out on Sunday and do it again and entertain.
Mm-hmm.
That in itself, I think, lengthens my career. I mean, I'm more dominant. The game is spread out, and I still don't know how officials are calling this crown of the helmet thing, right? So
Right.
interesting enough, I think the league has good intentions of protecting people, but at the end of the day, you can't guarantee anything. So
Mm-hmm.
what I challenge the league and say is, um, take care of the guys afterwards, and let the game be what it is. It's physical. It's a physical game,
Mm-hmm.
and those that choose to play, we live with that.
That's interesting, and I like that because you're right. Take care of the guys. Um, all right, I'm gonna wrap with this. I'm gonna wrap with this, but you got some legendary dudes that came through Oregon State, and I mentioned them. And I do a show on Saturdays with TJ called Up on Game. Um, do you have any stories on TJ Hushmanzada? Because I'm just curious. I remember him. Obviously, he's my generation of players. We're a little bit older than you, but you was in at the same time as us. Going into Oregon State, is there anything on TJ Hushmanzada?
I have nothing,
You
nothing.
don't have
I
nothing.
don't have nothing. He's a good brother. I have nothing on him. He was always one of those guys that actually taught us to have school pride because before them, before that group got there, it was a losing program.
Right.
To see these guys on Saturday scoring touchdowns, doing the pat down, right? They're on live TV doing like on some hood stuff. You like,
Right.
like I want to roll with them cats. I want to be down
Yeah.
with them. So TJ's always been a good dude, man. I can't say one bad thing about him, and he's very passionate about our legends. The
He
way he
is.
talks in interviews is the way he talks behind closed doors, and he's very, he gets the little hand slapped on the table when he's making an emphasis. So my thing is just love, man. It's number love and respect for
True. 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 All right. Before I let you go, man, you just talked about OBS. Is there anything else that you're promoting? Anything else you got going on? Talk to me.
him. It is. So I have a barber school here in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Okay.
My best friend and I, Carl Littles, he is our master barber and our instructor there. We grew up together in high school, and
Okay.
he's always been someone that actually he grew with me. And in our growth individually, he went out and he wanted to become a educator, and I supported that in the sense that we're ranked 49th in the country as a school district, and
Nice.
there's very limited opportunities here for these youngsters growing up in Vegas outside of industry work, and
Mm-hmm.
for us to promote individualism, being original, and being true to who we are. I believe in creating career paths, not just complaining about it, but actually action and doing something about it. So we
Mm-hmm.
came together, put our minds to work, and we created this barber school, the original barber school, which is a second meaning for the OBS there, so you can't forget it. But the original barber school here in Las Vegas, we're 100% full with a waiting list just as long as our opening.
Nice.
But it's one that the community has braced. We have given out numerous things to the community. So we're not only taking what we're giving, but we're also giving these young people a career path for them to be able to take advantage in the future. But it's speaking professionalism into them as well as helping them build up their clientele.
Fire. Is there a website?
It is. So it's a long one. So bear with me.
All
It's
right.
the Original Barber School LV for Las Vegas. So originalbarberschoollv.com.
So
There
so
you go.
does that mean you planning on going somewhere else?
Absolutely.
I know that's right. I know that's right. All right. All right. The original barber school LV.com. Make sure we're gonna put that up on the bottom of the screen. All right. Man, is there anything else? Is that is I mean, as if that's not enough, but I want to make sure anything that you want to put out there that you have this opportunity to put it out on the platform. Anything else you got?
Those of that and who does not follow me, please follow me on my social media. Most of them at SJ39 on Twitter. And then on Instagram, I am SJ39. I use my platforms there to hopefully to inspire, to encourage, and to motivate those of you that may be just fans of sports, but also enlightenment. I believe in pushing the narrative, pushing people forward. That's what I stand for. That's what I believe in. So I'm continuing to grow, and I hope you enjoy if you decide to follow the growth in myself and what I'll be pushing to the rest of the community. Thank you, brother.
Steve Jackson, y'all. This is Conversations with a Legend, presented by Up on Game Presents. Man, y'all been blessed today. Dope dude. I've been excited about the opportunity of pursuing to get the interview with you, and it's great to hear from you. Continued success to you, and yeah, like we're gonna put this out there because people need to hear the positivity. They need to feel the energy of juggernauts that have played this game but are humble warriors. Man, you're a humble warrior, and I appreciate your approach to what you do and how you do it. And any way we can support you, we're going to continue to support you, man. So we'll probably most likely be in contact with you to make sure we can do just that.
Thank you, brother. That means a lot to me.
My man, Steve Jackson, y'all, formerly of the Rams, the St. Louis Rams, played for, I want to say, the Falcons, right?
Yes.
And I know you ended up with Belichick. Maybe we'll do another one. We'll have a whole conversation on that too, because that's always an interesting one. But we got some interesting stuff, but we got time. We'll probably circle up at some point and do it again.
I would love that, man. Please, anytime.
My man. Next time we might do it. We might do it in person. You know what I mean? You never know. We might do it on the face-to-face.
Yeah, let's do that. Make that happen, man.
I appreciate you, man. All right, you be well.
You as well. Thank you.